This week,
we probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force.
Facing international backlash, Trump backs down from his threat to use military force to take Greenland.
The farmers ultimately pay the cost of this litigation.
Tennessee Republicans suddenly retreat on legislation to protect chemical companies from some lawsuits.
And just because you can get here illegally does not mean that you're entitled to be here.
Republican-sponsored immigration legislation moves lawmakers into legally uncharted territory. More in our This Week cover story.
So I'm here today to formally announce my candidacy for mayor in 2027.
The election for mayor of Nashville is 18 months away, but the first announced candidate is in the race. And hear from our political experts, Democratic strategist Mike Kopp and Republican strategist Chris Walker. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. We begin with hundreds of people arrested for DUI here in Tennessee despite testing negative for alcohol and drugs before a legislative committee of the leaders of the Tennessee Highway Patrol suggested no one was wrongfully arrested by his troopers. Here's News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry.
We don't reward a trooper for DUI arrests. They don't get compensation. The department certainly doesn't get compensation. Our job is to make the roadways of Tennessee safe and safer.
That's the leader of Tennessee Highway Patrol, Colonel Matt Perry. At a hearing today, a state senator asked him about data revealed because of a new state law. It showed 190 people arrested by THP for DUIs in 2024 whose blood tested negative for drugs and alcohol.
And we have our experts in our department review those. We've not had one that they said, yeah, this was somebody that probably shouldn't have been arrested.
I don't understand.
Are you being arrested?
I'm being arrested. I don't know why.
One high-profile case involved a former reality TV star and singer, Stephanie Fair. She was arrested in 2024 after a trooper said he smelled alcohol and saw eye movement during her field test, but a blood test came back negative. Her attorney says the data should prompt change.
If we're saying that innocent people were correctly arrested, we need to go back and look at why are people being arrested? What are the criteria that is being used? What are the tests that are being followed? Are those tests being run properly? Because if what they're doing results in people being wrongly arrested and they're saying that's okay, we need to go back to the drawing board to make sure that this doesn't keep happening.
It's unclear why Tennessee Republicans had a change of heart and suddenly pulled a bill to protect pesticide companies from some lawsuits. Now, the legislation got the attention of conservative figures like country singer John Rich, who came out against it.
Supporters call it consistency. Critics call it immunity. The bill in question would limit lawsuits if you get sick from a pesticide. As long as a product's label was approved by the EPA, you wouldn't be allowed to sue over the labeling.
The farmers ultimately pay the cost of this litigation, and through the attrition of farmers, your constituents will ultimately pay it, and I would submit that they're paying it right now in increased food costs.
The Republican-backed bill passed the Senate last year and was up for debate in its final House committee today. But just 30 minutes before that meeting, opposition poured in from some unexpected public figures, including singer-songwriter John Rich and conservative podcast host Sean Ryan, who tweeted, quote, "Tennessee state politicians side with foreign pesticide companies over people dying of cancer. Maha moms, health advocates, and farmers' attorneys call the bill a liability shield that protects big corporations from lawsuits over some serious health injuries, arguing the lawmakers who support it are just motivated by money."
And do the representatives here really want? Well, what happens when that case happens in a year or two? And then that family's on statewide TV explaining how they can't get any relief and remedy because we decided to sacrifice our sovereignty to Washington, D.C. on behalf of a big foreign corporation because it made nice donations to a few representatives.
After all that pushback, the sponsor, Representative Rusty Grills, decided to delay the House committee vote.
In a major reversal this week, President Trump backed down on his threat to use the U.S. military to take control of Greenland. This all coming after his address to world leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
Trump announcing in a social media post he has reached a, quote, framework of a deal with the Secretary General of NATO and is backing off on his threats to impose new tariffs on NATO allies. While the president reiterated calls for the U.S. to acquire the Danish territory, this time he's taking military intervention off the table.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
European leaders uniting in support of Denmark, which owns Greenland, saying it's not for sale. During an interview with Fox News, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the U.S. ownership of Greenland did not come up during his meeting with President Trump.
He's very much focused on what do we need to do to make sure that that huge Arctic region, where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and Russians are more and more active, how we can protect that. That was really the focus of our discussions.
Melissa O'Don, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Now to our This Week cover story. Tennessee lawmakers are moving into legally uncharted territory. A Republican House bill would make it a crime for a person to remain in Tennessee after receiving a final deportation order. Republicans say this is about public safety and taxpayer dollars. Critics claim it could put Tennessee on a collision course with the U.S. Constitution. Here's News 2's Kelly Milan.
House bill would create a new state-level offense. If someone receives a final deportation order under federal immigration law and remains in Tennessee, they could face criminal prosecution by the state.
And just because you can get here illegally does not mean that you're entitled to be here.
The Republican lawmakers estimate illegal immigration costs Tennessee taxpayers close to $1 billion.
What we are worried about is the number of illegal immigrants who have murdered, robbed, abused, raped people in the state of Tennessee, and what that has done to victims and what that has done to dollars.
But the bill raises a fundamental legal question. Immigration enforcement has long been considered the responsibility of the federal government. More than a decade ago, the Supreme Court drew a firm line, saying this new bill introduced will test that precedent.
It violates the supremacy clause as well as the holding in United States versus Arizona.
In 2012, Arizona had passed its own sweeping immigration law, giving state authorities broad power to arrest and prosecute undocumented immigrants. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down key parts of that law, holding that immigration enforcement is primarily a federal matter, and states cannot create their own parallel immigration crimes. Much of this new Tennessee bill, Gerstein says, relies on Supreme Court decision being reinterpreted or overturned.
I have a feeling that they foresee that there will be a challenge to it at some point. So many things that we think will never happen seem to come to light. So in that sense, we never know. But immigration is definitely something within the federal government's purview.
If House Bill 1704 becomes law, a legal challenge is likely. And once again, the courts may be asked to decide where state authority ends and federal power begins. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Kelly. Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back. The election to choose a mayor of Nashville is 18 months away, but we have the first announced candidate. Antioch Metro Councilmember Joy Stiles is ready to take on incumbent Mayor Freddie O'Connell and anyone else who enters the race between now and Election Day.
So I'm here today to formally announce my candidacy for mayor in 2027.
Metro Councilmember Stiles is a champion of the Antioch area she represents, and of rebirthing the once vibrant Hickory Hollow Mall from its current state of abandonment and decay.
But now, the site is suffering. It has a lack of attention and a lack of focus. Our neighborhood is suffering as a result. And this site has now become a glaring example of the lack of leadership that we currently have. We have a vision and a plan, but it requires investment for it to come to fruition. And that investment is just not being made.
Councilmember Stiles convinced the city to purchase the mall in 2022 and develop a plan to end the years of blight.
We worked together, we created a master plan, and we revealed it in the summer of 2023. But in September of 2023, under the current administration, everything came to a screeching halt.
Councilmember Stiles accuses Mayor O'Connell of weak leadership that she wants to change.
I'm running because Nashville needs a fighter, someone who's going to fight for you and your neighborhood.
Her priorities are similar to those of other political hopefuls: better schools, safe communities, more playgrounds and parks, controlling growth, and importantly, including the ideas of citizens.
Over the next 18 months, I'm going to travel to every corner of this county because I want to hear from you. I want to hear what are the needs of your community.
Her goal is to be hired by the people of Nashville to be its next mayor, to work for those who call Music City home.
I want you to know that I'm going to work with you now on this campaign, and I'm going to work for you as your mayor.
Now, when told about Councilmember Stiles' mayoral announcement, Mayor Freddie O'Connell's office sent us a statement saying he is planning to run again. And Mayor O'Connell believes that the democratic process is open for everyone to participate. And he will continue to focus on the important task of leading the city and supporting Nashvillians into the future. Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. And welcome back to This Week. I'm pleased to be joined by my panel of political experts, Democratic strategist Mike Kopp and Republican strategist Chris Walker. Welcome to see you guys, and hope you had great holidays.
He does.
Let's start with some immigration stuff here in Tennessee. House Speaker Sexton met over the holidays with White House hardliner Stephen Miller and came back with about 9 proposals that all seem to push constitutional boundaries a little bit. One would make it a crime for a person to remain in Tennessee after receiving a final deportation order. Another mandates local police and sheriff's offices to assist ICE. And a third would allow public school systems to not accept undocumented children. And if they want to go to school there, they would have to pay tuition. This is all going to be constitutionally challenged, a lot of lawsuits. What do these achieve?
Well, there's the political benefit, I guess, to those putting it forward. One is they look tougher on immigration. But the fact of the matter is, and I think your story pointed this out, the Constitution, the federal government decides our immigration policies, not the states. And I think what this is a play by the White House, Stephen Miller in particular, to try to push some things on certain agendas to try to help support Republicans running in state offices. That's the way I see it.
I mean, what we're seeing, though, too, is states like Minnesota and now Virginia with Governor Spanberger is when state and local don't cooperate with ICE, it becomes a much more combative situation. I would argue allowing states to have a little bit more interaction with federal law enforcement decreases the temperature and allows for a better outcome potentially. We'll see how the lawsuits all shake out. Obviously, I think they're looking at potential for Supreme Court to be in a different calculus than it was 4 or 5 years ago when they discounted the Arizona law. So these things are fungible, but I'm a conservative in the sense that local is better than federal, and I would rather see local law enforcement enacting law than federal law enforcement. So I'd rather see them than to have ICE here doing the job.
And if I may, I think there's one thing about the feds working closely with local law enforcement to enforce the federal immigration laws. I think the issue here is, do we allow states to start setting immigration policy within their state that might be counter to what the federal laws are? And I think that's a dangerous precedent.
I think if you talk to 100 people, 90% will agree we want a secure border. We want illegal people who are criminals out of this country. That was the stated goal of the national immigration push, the mass deportation effort by the president. It's not what's going on. People that are being arrested, their own numbers show 75% had committed no crime other than being here illegal. We're seeing U.S. citizens being deported accidentally, but it's happening. Children being deported. How do we get back on ground to what the American people seem to want, and this isn't it?
Well, we're seeing that reflected in the polls. I mean, ICE is I think it's a 70-30 issue against right now, and I think people are it's the sausage making where there's opposition to illegal immigration, but then when people see the pictures of it being enforced, people get a little squeamish on it. It's understandable. But we do want the criminals out of there. We do want folks, and I would say, if you're here illegally, that is technically an illegal act. That is breaking the law.
But that's not the stated goal of this program.
That's right. But that is part of the policy that this White House has adopted, and so I think that's where it's kind of looking at. We'll see where that shakes out over time, because it is unpopular.
I think what this White House and this administration is doing, they're ignoring due process. I mean, we have whether you're here illegally or not, you have the right to go before an administrative judge and have your case heard. And what we see happening is people being hauled off into detention centers, members of Congress not being allowed to even visit those centers, even though they're funding it through Congress. And we don't know who's being arrested and when and why. And a lot of people are being released without any information whatsoever. That's not due process. We're better than that.
Some concerning numbers. Some concerning numbers. The Tennessee Democrats and Republicans came together and got a law passed that allowed for the release of data that shows more than 200 people were arrested here in Tennessee by state troopers for DUI. Blood alcohol came back and said there was nothing wrong with them. Accidents happen. People get arrested wrongly. 200 seemed like a big number. The THP is defending this, saying not one person was arrested wrongly. Is there a problem here?
Yes. The Constitution calls for, what we were just talking about during the session, unlawful search and seizure is a constitutional right. And the proliferation of law enforcement becoming aggressively pulling over people without suspicion is going against a constitutional right. And so,
and blurry eyes, and you need more than that to arrest someone for DUI.
And so, yes, I mean, we have rights as citizens that we do not have an overbearing government coming in and seizing our property, seizing our, detaining us for no probable cause. Those are things that need to be addressed, and Tennessee Highway Patrol needs to address those questions.
And we may be seeing a situation, I hope not, where we see state officials, state law enforcement people looking at how much leeway is being given to these ICE agents. Mm-hmm. We don't know who they are. They can arrest people for whatever reason. And I hope that's not empowering them to do the same thing on the local level when they're trying to exercise state law.
We need to be protective of our constitutional rights. No matter who's in office, blue or red, we need to be cognizant of an unlawful, law enforcement taking matters into their hands too far.
Are we through the Greenland stuff? We go to Davos. The president finally says that what I think was never going to happen anyway, that he's not going to use military force. There was never going to be U.S. troops attacking Greenland, but that's what he threatened. That threat has gone away. He's backed down once again, says it's a framework. The Danish people say there's no framework. We have what we have. U.S. can do whatever they want. Is this issue behind us now? We'll move on to something else?
I'll let you go first on that one.
Who knows?
It seemed like a pretty big distraction.
It seems like a distraction. I think to take away from the somewhat silliness of the topic, international things change.
Yes.
And so China is a threat. Russia has shown that they're willing to invade countries. And so that's something that being forward thinking about international relationships and how to change some of those things, I'm actually open to. Threatening NATO allies is not an okay solution to that, and I'm glad he backed away from that. But looking at Greenland as a potential option for future minerals or base expansion, that's something that's okay to be thinking about.
And the Danish people said it's fine to do that. We used to have many more military bases there. We could resume those if we want.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is sort of the old child's game of green light, red light, green light, red light. I mean, we see it with the tariffs where he's threatening countries if they don't agree with something he has said or he disagrees with something that they said. That's not diplomacy. That's not the way you strengthen your relationship with allies. And I think the damage in all this, I agree, I think it's all distractions to get away from the economy and to get away from Epstein files and everything else that's happening here locally. But what I see happening is it's damaging our foreign policy standing, and it serves no purpose.
How long will it take to repair some of this? You see Canada saying we're going to maybe reach out to China more than the U.S. for investments. The European Union, nobody joined his Gaza Peace Corps. I mean, there's all kinds of dissent going on between this president and a lot of our allies.
I think to me, the answer to that question is going to be, when are we going to get people in Congress to stand up and do their job? It seems like so many, say Republicans and some Democrats too, have taken an oath to Trump, not to the Constitution. Once we have that, I think we can set the course right.
I agree. I think Congress needs to assert themselves more, particularly as it relates to tariffs. The taxation is a congressional mandate. The Supreme Court will rule on that hopefully very soon. But I would also argue to a certain degree that, we saw Hillary Clinton come with the reset button. I mean, these things always change a little bit depending on new administrations. America and the world is best when we're strong and we're friends with our allies, and that's something that I think we need to continue, and I think the international leaders know that as well.
There are a lot of folks in your party who want this president to start talking about affordability. So far, he hasn't. This seems to be, we're still a long way from the election, but this seems to be the key issue for this election coming up this November. if the Republicans don't start talking about ways to fix affordability, are you guys in big trouble for the midterms?
We'll see. I don't want to abandon conservative principles in the name of affordability. We know government intervention in free market economics makes things more expensive. So the federal government coming in to be the solution to the problem, in my view, is not how to fix affordability. Getting government out of the process and letting the free markets kind of expand and grow with the private sector in the lead, I think is the best way to
part of the
lower
affordability
prices.
issue are the tariffs too, the result of the tariffs.
The tariffs, and I think just this, again, red light, green light policy approach is, it's spooky for the market. It's spooky for investors. It's scary for people in business, especially when you're wanting to invest in America, and then you have these issues about whether or not the policies are going to change and affect you one way or the other.
Mike Kopp, Chris Walker, appreciate your time and your insights. Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment.
So I get the criticism from
And thank you for spending part of your, we're still having a good discussion here. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. That will do it for another edition of This Week. I do want to thank my guests, Mike Kopp and Chris Walker. We hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week. It's going to be a bad weekend, folks. Be safe out there. Ice and snow is on the way. Stay inside if you have to. We'll see you back here next weekend. Have a good week.